This is Ben Shalom and you're watching Sporting Icons.
So VAR in boxing, video assistant referee in boxing. Now this is something that Ben Shalom, the head of boxer and of course the lead promoter for Sky Sports Boxing, Ben Shalom, has said that he's been having conversations with Robert Smith, the General Secretary of the British Boxing Board of Control, to try to cut down on some of the bad decisions in boxing, dodgy scorecards, refereeing mistakes, all that kind of good stuff. Now, firstly, well done to Ben Shalom for at least trying to make something different, trying to improve it. Of course, he mentioned about the 3 judges at ringside, but also having 2 backstage on monitors as well, which is something that I've been saying for like the last couple of years. That would be great as far as the judges are concerned. Have a couple of referees who are away from the crowd, who don't have that crowd pressure. They're up there in the gods, away from everybody, with a couple of TVs. Now, of course, you can't always do that on, like, say, for example, small hall shows. That's a little bit different. But all the years that people have been talking about change and they're unhappy about this and they're unhappy about that, who's actually done anything? Nobody. But Ben Shalom, as I said to you guys probably about a year ago, if anybody's ever going to try to make changes, it's going to be him, because he hasn't been, I don't know what other word to use, but brainwashed into the system of boxing yet. Because he's still very young, he's still very new into boxing. He's only been involved in boxing for, 7 years? Something like that. But he's willing to give it a go. He's willing to try new things. And it appears that the board are feeling the pressure as well, because the fans have had enough of referees and judges' decisions and people accusing certain referees and judges of being on payrolls and all that kind of stuff. Of course, we don't know if any of that's true, but at least something's going to be done. Now, as far as VAR is concerned, a video assistant referee, now, I'm all for it as long as it improves boxing. If we can take out as much subjectivity of boxing as possible, that'd be great. But of course, when it comes to VAR, much like it does in football, it can disturb the play a little bit. It can. Boxing, 3-minute rounds with 1-minute rest in between each round. How do you do that without disturbing the play of boxing? How do you do it? Are certain things going to happen, and then the referee gets challenged, or he calls up to the guy who's doing the VAR to wait for a decision? Okay, cool, continue the round. For example, if he docks an opponent or a fighter a point, it can go to the VAR, for example. That kind of thing is good, which can then be reviewed in between the rounds, can't it? Then it can then be fed back to the referee, who can then feed back to the fighter and the team, say, actually, they've reviewed it and it is a legitimate point deduction, or, my bad, I made a mistake, it's not going to be a point deduction, okay? So those kind of things you could certainly improve boxing for, that is for sure. But boxing is always going to have that subjectivity about it, because how do you really score fights where one judge, for example, may like the pure boxer, the other might like the aggressor? There seems to be no set pattern when it comes to judges, when they all really should be looking at the same thing, shouldn't they? They should be scoring in the same way, but they don't, because subjectivity, right? They have a personal preference. I prefer fighters who try to dictate the play aggressively, go forward. I don't like the back foot fighter, pure boxer. I don't like that, so therefore I don't think that that person should win that round. That's how it's going to be. But VAR, the video action replay, the video assistant referee, what kind of impact can that have? I'm not too sure. But ultimately, you see, we have fights where, I know, we can look at the Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall first fight, for example. The British Boxing Board of Control, they suspended one of their judges, Ian John Lewis, right? Suspended him, and as far as I'm aware, I don't know this for a fact, but as far as I heard, he's actually now left the British Boxing Board of Control. He's now working with another organisation. But you got Victor Lachlan, who was also scoring that particular fight, who also scored it in favour of Josh Taylor. Well, did he get suspended? As far as I'm aware, he didn't. Okay. But clearly the board understood, yeah, that was probably the wrong decision. It was. But instead, what they want to do is say, well, our referees are very, they're well trained, they're very honest people and all that kind of stuff. When I'm sure that that's what they believe, because that's really what they want to believe. They're not going to know if a certain referee or a judge is on somebody's payroll. They're not going to know that, are they? Again, some referees and judges may score a fight in favour of the home fighter in the hope that that particular promoter of Sky Sports, of DAZN, or BT Sport, however, will bring them back. Because they may not want to bring them back if they score for the away fighter. They may not, especially on the big fight nights. So I'm not too sure how VAR is really going to change that, unless, of course, the British Box Board of Control are going to tighten up internally and review fights and rescore them and then change the results. Now, if that kind of thing happens and you have a form of VAR in boxing, then that's going to happen here in the UK. And apparently there's going to be something in place by the time the rematch for Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall comes around. But it appears, that should be global though, shouldn't it? Globally, everyone should be doing it together, pitching in new ideas and whatever else. Not just have the British Box Board of Control and one promoter in Ben Shalom doing it. Eddie Hearn should be involved. Frank Warren should be involved. Mick Hennessy should be involved. Dennis Hobson and Phil Jeffries and Sam Jones, and the list goes on, right? Everybody should have their own input. Managers have their own input. Say, this is what should happen. And also as a way to improve on the results of boxing, but at the same time, not pause the play. Because there'd be nothing worse than, say, 2 minutes into a round, and then you have to wait around for 30 seconds to a minute while the VAR guy or girl is reviewing something. Nothing should really be disturbing the 3 minutes. Nothing should really be disturbing it, should they? Point deductions, as I said, they can just do that as the fight goes along. But decisions, overall decisions, I think that every 3 rounds, both teams and the viewing public should know exactly what the scorecards are at that point. They should know. And maybe somebody who's doing the VAR, maybe an assistant, whatever, could also be watching it going, hang on a minute, how has that judge got this person 3 rounds up when, according to us, where we have the benefit of action replay and all this kind of thing, there's no way that that fighter should be 3 rounds up or whatever, okay? And decisions can be challenged right there and then. Because that's all really boxing fans want, isn't it? We want fair decisions, whether it be our favourite fighter. And it happens, they get favourable decisions. But in reality, it's not fair, because you have fighters, you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We don't know, do we? The training camps and how hard it is. Maybe they need the money and all this kind of thing, and they just get taken away from them. All that hard work, and they get robbed. And it happens more often in the amateurs. That's why a lot of amateurs, they turn pro. But what you don't want to be doing is leaving the amateurs because of dodgy decisions and being told by the referees and the judges, well, it's just boxing politics, don't worry about it. And it happens quite a lot, by the way, for them to turn pro, and the same thing happens again. That's not fair. The winner of that particular fight should be the winner, regardless, home fighter, away fighter, however. Which is why I think it's good to have a couple of assistants backstage, especially on like the big TV shows, where they will have the facilities and the ability to watch fights on the screen. Small halls, of course, you can't really do it, unless, of course, you have some kind of like a live stream that they can do. But again, that's all cost. In fact, all of it's just going to be extra cost, isn't it? But could VAR sort out a lot of the problems? What do you think? Drop your thoughts below. Click thumbs up, subscribe. Catch you next video.